We do well naturally flowing into stuff. I definitely love, I mean, I would say the first one that hit my mind, even this morning now, is kindness and intentionality. And I know that I wrote down or meant to write down this podcast, and it came from a scenario of seeing somebody in the middle of something where I was talking about someone being rude. I remember that, and not understanding what they were going through. I know what it was. It was that woman that day in the park that went nuts. That was what it was. Mm-hmm. And so you can explain the story. Do you want me to?
I can explain it. We were at the park with our kids, and we were kind of off to the side, away from the playground. And at the playground, we hear just a woman screaming, "When I tell you no, you better stop." And so at first, I had heard screaming before that, and I just thought it was kind of like kids screaming. But then that one made me turn my head because I was like, no, that's an adult screaming. And so I turned my head and see her. Was she kind of holding it was a teenage girl.
Yeah, she started to like grab her, or like threw this plastic bag at her.
Yeah.
Or
something like that.
And started to grab a hold of her.
And then the adult like kind of stormed off, and then came and sat on a bench and was crying. And our question was, is this her daughter? Does she know this woman?
Yeah. So I asked the girl,
what was the teenage girl doing that made this woman so upset? Is the woman psychotic? What is the relationship between the two of them?
And that's it. And that's what it was. Because I'm like, it's very tough. And I've said this a lot lately. It's very tough to have anything happen in public opinion and have a moment judged without full understanding. And so, because not everyone, but we have different moments in life where you snap or you have a weak moment. I know here, like, to get stressed and say something that you're like, gosh. And then if you're solely judged off that, it's really difficult.
Yeah,
and
if you're solely judged off of many motherhood moments of mine, it'll be like, wow, she's like really high strung. But if you don't see all the other like moments
that lead up to it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, because I definitely would have empathy, and also it's like, yeah, that's crazy. You're there's something to be said that you're in the wrong for, having this outlash. You obviously lost control.
We started off by me being like, I cannot believe her. I'm extremely angry at that woman. And you basically said, well, we don't know what she's been through that day. And we don't know how many times she told her daughter to stop.
We 100% would step in.
If there was any kind of physical. Yeah.
For sure. They're walking away. It was like, okay. But like you're saying, because I initially think that it's easy. You're going to take that quick opinion of like what you see.
Yeah.
And then I asked the girl, do you know who that was? And she said, yeah, that's my mom. And I'm like,
and
okay.
You said, is everything okay?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
And she said, yes. And I said, okay. And
you also mentioned like maybe the teenager was swinging on a swing and there was little kids around her.
Yeah.
And maybe her mom was like, stop swinging because you're going to hit one of these kids. The teenager maybe pushed off even harder to swing even bigger. And then the mom's like, when I tell you to stop, you stop.
Could see a kid.
So it's like.
You don't know the trauma. And I mentioned it's like you don't know the trauma if she lost a little kid or something at some point.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't necessarily ever make us right in those moments with that. But I definitely love erring on the side of, like, I see things more empathetic. And I definitely, from having, the toughest time for me, is that I always go to is that 2 years, of going from the one business and the bankruptcy and the toughness. And everyone on the outside, I always say that everybody on the outside was an expert in that moment. And so leading up to that, no one knows, and then they're cheering you on and stuff. But as soon as you say, oh, that didn't work, everyone has a million reasons. They're like, I could have told you, I could have done this. And that was such a good one for me because I lived that. And I was like, well, I'm going to make sure I always give people the benefit of the doubt.
You definitely took your bankruptcy experience and had a life-altering perspective shift that like embedded into your heart, into your mind, that you now live with like every single day. you felt so judged in that moment that you're like, I am never doing that to anybody else, and that's how you live every day.
I that's exactly what happened because I'm like I definitely like even people I definitely was never like a sympathy person. I didn't need anybody like I was owning it in that moment. I'm like I'm fixing this that in fact people knew very little because I wasn't complaining and saying or blaming anyone.
Yeah.
I like taking ownership and saying that we'll figure this out. And actually people were wrong about what was even happening most of the time. We actually still had money. We were still functioning and stuff, but the perception, is always like you hear bankruptcy and you think that the bank's actually driving to your house and taking things from you like a cartoon, and it's not. They're actually mainly it's just a restructuring, with stuff most of the time, and so we had the choice to either fight through it for years or just start over, and so I mainly we can tell the bankruptcy one on a different one. I think I was always geared and cared more, even in Bible college, when I heard there was such magnification behind money and evil and people that used money for bad and people that were out there and they were so powerful and they could do all these negative things with money. And I'm like, well, there's positive people too, and I will be one of them, and I will do positive things with money. And so I think from taking small acts of kindness, and that was what I originally was saying. But we said this to Wiley the other day, those little moments that somebody does something and how much they can change that day has made my life, in many ways. When someone was kind in a moment,
It makes you currently look for
I look.
little moments.
Where's
You're
the moment?
very good at that.
I want to encourage someone. I want to let them know that it's okay, and I want to be kind. And
oftentimes you use your money for things. You will buy them a gift. You'll
Yeah.
pay for their meal. You'll set something up for them later.
Yeah.
But you've taught me tremendously how to be generous, showing me back when we were just friends and you bought all of us Christmas gifts. I was like, this guy must be loaded. He's buying all of us friends gifts. This is awesome. Little did I
probably
know
had no money.
you had like $200 in your account, but you just physically loved buying gifts for people and being generous. And it's just always been that way.
We enjoy giving, even with the Christmases and stuff too, and with everybody, that stuff. It is just fun,
Yeah.
to give.
Well, and you were saying that like the little moments. So that's something that we're teaching Wiley, that she's in school and to always be looking for little moments that you can insert kindness, that it will not only change their day, but honestly affect them for life. How many of us have stories from elementary school that we felt embarrassed, we were scared, something bad had happened, and then somebody came through with a little act of kindness that we still remember to this day.
Yes.
I know I have stories. I know you have stories. We've talked about it with our friends. They have stories. So to be looking for those small acts of kindness, ways to do that.
To do it.
Yeah.
Because and with the practical in that story, like an example is, I remember which was what we told Wiley. I remember that there was a foreign student at school and that he was starting to get made fun of, and I stood up to him, or stood up to the bully, and befriended him, just kind to him, and hung out with him some, and just nice as a human should be to him, and him messaging me years after high school and saying how much, just that.
Which you have lots of stories like that, though. You are a very stand-up, like, I've got everybody behind me covered. Like, I'm here to protect you all. And you're still like that to this day. It's interesting because you honestly haven't changed that much. I think about myself, and I was very shy, for years, and didn't speak my mind a lot, very content being quiet. I hung out in my room all like of elementary school. I feel like my bed was my favorite place to be. I would just hang out in my bed and read a book or something. And now I feel like I have more of a voice. I'm more
very busy.
Yeah, busy. Yeah, lazy used to be the number one word that, like, not really my family, but kind of got tossed around about me. And I was fine with that. Napping was my love language. It was my favorite activity to do. So I was fine being called lazy. But yeah, I definitely have changed a ton But hearing your stories as a kid, it's exactly who you are like today too. It's
Now.
yeah, it's interesting.
I know. I wonder, is it just the spiritual upbringing or what's in me? Do we think genetics? You see Wiley has some of that.
Yeah.
Wiley seems, well, we won't know. Wiley seems the most personality-wise like me so far.
It's true. It's
But
hard
we
to
won't
tell
know.
when we have such littles, but she definitely is, without even comparing her to the others, she definitely is, oh gosh, there's a hand sneaking in.
Bringing some
It was
batteries.
Morgan. She's bringing batteries. Without even comparing her to the others, she is very much like your personality.
She loves giving and
She
being
loves
kind.
giving, yes.
And she's very much a truth to the, like I was truthful to an annoying degree.
Yes.
To where I had to tell you things.
Yes.
And so Mama can
You had to
attest
tell
to
your
that.
mom.
I had to tell my mom.
Yeah.
And so that's a big one.
All your thoughts, yeah.
With Morgan coming in here reminds me, because I would want to tell that story too, is that the other story that I told Wiley was, Troy's story and how much it affected him to today.
That also ran across my mind, but I didn't know if we wanted to tell it. But if you feel comfortable,
You can tell it if you want.
No, I don't know it well enough.
Well, no, just I told her, I said, Troy. And I'm like, that how much to this day Troy grew up poor. And that to this day he will tear up because they were on a field trip and they stopped at a McDonald's and he was the only kid without money for food. And a girl gave him money for food and just showed kindness, and he will tear up telling that story and has thanked that girl today.
Yeah.
And small moments, because I think, and I don't know why, because some people will take a bad scenario and want to replicate it. I don't know if it's that they get hurt and turn it into that, but I don't think of life as a thing of like, well, you did something to me, so that's like I'm hurt by everyone, or now I'm going to change in this negative way. I'm going to let it get me. I've always thought, well, I really let them get me if I alter who I am. And I've said that many times where it's like people don't necessarily reciprocate if I give or we choose to give. And I know it comes off, it's annoying sometimes if like you've done something and it's not necessarily a thank you, but it seems unappreciated. And I always say that I do it for me more than for them, so in the sense of, because that's who I am. And so I'm not going to change like who I am for that. And so I will use negative moments, to also be like, well, I don't want this to happen to other people. I think I genuinely the gift part of it is that I genuinely have empathy for people and feel them in that moment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've been through tough times. And if I can help you with simple words or a small amount, then gosh, I know what it feels to have a burden lifted, because it's not like I wasn't helped, and I had great parents. And at that time, I remember, I will say in the craziest part of that when I moved up here, it was in the middle of moving up here with the bankruptcy, and me and your dad were on that first flip that I'd ever done. And I had put some money into it, 15 or 16 grand. It was either to buy it or most of the material. And your dad did offer, knowing the situation that I was in, to give me the money back, even though we weren't done with the house and stuff, and that he would just wait on the rest of it. And when he did, I was in the truck with him, and he didn't get an answer for like 15 minutes because I was just looking out the window crying.
Back your tears.
Oh, gosh, I wasn't holding them back, just weeping.
Oh, you were weeping?
Just that, and it is crazy and I think that we just allow ourselves to be into play so much. So we're annoyed with the day, and our day sucks. And we think that other people, I don't think that necessarily it's intentional. We're just like, screw it. I'm going to be a dick.
We are pretty selfish, I feel
Yeah.
like, unless we're super aware and intentional.
Yeah.
I feel like we're naturally selfish. Not even just
Yeah.
me and you. I'm talking about humanity.
Everybody. Yeah, we are.
Or maybe just Americans. I don't know.
And no, for sure. And being aware of let me be super nice to this woman today at Walgreens across the street. And let me do something. I don't know if the last 7 people were rude or just normal or what, but I'm I always want to be that was a net positive.
Yeah,
to
you're
the
definitely
day.
let me leave this better than when I found it in every area. For instance, if you take something out of the garage, you'll put it back and then you'll also fix something else that's in there. I don't know why I use that as an example because I don't think you've ever done that.
Maybe
but
not that.
It's similar things to
Yes.
that. You always will take something, use it, put it back exactly where you found it, make sure that it's charged, and then make sure that the remote is like in visible, viewing.
Or like the
instead
Christmas
of
tree.
just like, let me just put this back over
back.
here in this corner and Lauren will figure it out from there. And who knows where the remote is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you are very much like, let me leave this better than how I found it. And I feel like that goes with how you treat people too.
And you treat people.
I do treat people.
You treat people. You treat
How
people
do I
well.
treat people?
You treat people well.
I think I'm not ashamed to say that in this current season of my life, I'm not the best version of my spirit and heart that I've ever been. I'm okay with that. I love myself and I know I'm just working through it. Motherhood takes a lot out of me, and then this business takes a lot out of me.
Takes a lot.
When you take care of 3 kids,
It's a ton.
it's a ton.
Because,
So,
I always, it does. That one, I was going to say when you were talking about the kindness, you are fun, though.
I am
It didn't
fun.
let you lose any of your fun. You play with the kids a ton. You're fun. You still have the childlike, funny,
I am
let's
very
be silly.
childlike. It's something I've never lost, and I'm very proud of.
And that's a big one then.
I will say, too, what I wanted to say was that it's funny because we are action takers. So, like, you said the thing to the woman at the park, and then remember when we were at Malibu Jack's, and those 2 young boys were fighting up in the...
That was a great
What are
that's a
they?
great
Up in
one.
the jungle gym?
Yeah.
And I sprinted.
Lauren ran
I
up
was
there.
like, everybody's staring at these 2
Lauren
children.
Lauren ran up there like she just got tagged in at the wrestling match.
I was like, I see. And what I could only see from my point of view was a larger boy pushing the shoulders of a smaller kid. And I don't care about who's right and who's wrong. And I don't care. Like, I just
They're
don't
not
know.
fighting, though.
But
Yeah.
they're not fighting on my watch.
Yeah.
Because if my boy is up there and they're that small, I want somebody to step in.
Yeah.
And, other people might be like, let them fight.
No.
Let's see what they're
No.
made of.
I mean, that's stupid.
But when they're that small
They're
and you're in that
actually
public of a
fighting.
place, I also saw like a group around the bigger kid.
Yeah.
And the other kid was very solo.
No.
So I sprinted up in that little kid's jungle gym thing at all 6 foot of me. And while all the parents down there watched, and I said, whatever y'all are doing, you need to go ahead and break it up. One of you needs to go down there. The other one can stay up here. Or you go find your parents, but
Yeah.
we're not being physical in front of other children. And we're not doing this up here in the jungle gym.
Yeah.
So and then they started tattling. I don't care who's right. I don't care who's wrong. Go find your parents and separate.
Yeah.
Then they come down from the jungle gym.
Yeah, let's judge the parents on this one a
They
little bit.
continue to fight. That bigger boy continues to push the smaller boy, throwing F words around.
Yeah,
and
I'm going to
stuff,
judge the parents on grab your child.
and remove
like on
them
that one
from
I'm
the
going
situation.
to.
Yeah,
Whoever that was.
Yeah.
You were wrong.
it was rough.
Get your kids out of there. And help them and stop this scenario. Like
Yeah.
you're just letting these kids sit here. I'm about to grab the parent,
Yeah,
put the parent in the headlock, and
Yeah.
be like, "Follow your parent as I drag them out of here." Like that one was goofy. No, I'm all for that. They don't need to. You did run up there with confidence, though. What if one of them would have tried to jump you?
I could have taken him. I mean, easily to
And
the
just-
face. You know what I mean?
One kick,
One kick, and they would have been out.
and they'd have been done for.
I would have
Except that
done what
big
I
one.
needed to do.
Unless they all teamed up on you,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
and then Gray would have hopped in.
I think the rage,
Yeah.
I could have turned it on and just gone for it.
There was one other with the kindness one. Kindness is always on my mind, and heart, and a big part. Kindness in a way that you can deliver it, because I do think that we see it in a small ecosystem around us. That, I'm going to back up and tell a different scenario then too, to explain it. Is that I was telling some of the guys out here the other day, I'm like, it is very easy to get into a group of people and complain. It's very easy to talk negatively. It's just way more simple and contagious. And you have this, whatever it be, serotonin and, the camaraderie of everybody together and the friendship of us. Like, we're all bashing this thing and we're talking negatively and we think it's humorous that, man, my life sucks too. And like, I wish, dude, I just, I don't even got anything, and we do that when I don't like to do that or won't do that because it's like we have so many things to be grateful for on such a simple, level. I'm like, mine is, I'm like, well, how many ever years ago, 6, 7 years ago, it was bankruptcy and who knows what, losing this stuff. But on the war level, like, we're not in a crazy wartime where guys, our age and younger were, dying by the hundreds of thousands. And so, and many other things, beyond that, that's just one of them. But the stronger person, which is, if I could instill something with the kids and Wiley, the stronger person, even though more difficult, after the first 2 to 3 people answered, I'm here.
How are
Life
you
sucks.
today? I'm here.
I'm here.
I'm alive.
I'm alive. I'm all right.
Yeah.
And then it's really hard.
What was the thing that the guy said at Jersey Mike's?
I'm breathing.
I'm breathing.
I'm breathing. I'm here. And I'm
Yeah.
like, gosh, what are you telling yourself and your brain? And it takes it's really difficult to be the 4th, 5th person in that group and say, I'm good,
doing
man.
great.
I'm doing really good.
Or
Like,
I'm just thankful to be here. That's even better
yeah,
than I'm here.
thankful. I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Like, it's a good day. And what's funny is I'll say that at tough days because I'm like the speaking it, into existence, believing that and stuff too, and being able to change your attitude. Like by the middle of the day, I normally can pull myself out of that, and then you're in a good mood. And I would rather a positive impact around me. I'm like, what kind of friend am I if I just left my few friends in a horrible state? Because what I say is, at the end of that, you go home and you live in those crappy thoughts by yourself, and in your own head. You're the only
you don't
one
have
in
the
your own head.
camaraderie.
You don't have that
anymore when you go
camaraderie
home.
when you're like, this really does suck. And you're whispering in your late night thoughts, and you're like, gosh. And then there's your depression. There's all these crazy things. It's like, or in that moment, you can be like, dude, didn't you just, fix your car? And didn't you just, all these little things, like, dude, aren't you not dead? Like, nah, man, I'm not, I'm not dead. It's like, there's so many great things. Like, let me spin this for you. Let me help. And those are real ones that later you can dwell on and be like, you know what, I can pull out of this.
Yeah.
Might be funner for a brief moment to be the negative one, but it is more impactful and long lasting to be the positive one.
When you run a business, we can see things like, it's almost like a study group. Like we are active observants of groups of people, and we draw things from it all the time. And that's one of the things that you have noticed.
Yeah.
When you have a group of people together, if the first 1 or 2 people are positive, everybody else kind of
Positive.
follows in line. But if the first 1 or 2 people are negative, then everybody jumps on board with that and gets really excited about negativity.
Yes.
And it just takes the one person to stand out, be stronger, and spin it positively, whatever it is.
And then, and now I'm like down to the cell where it was neutrons, protons, and electrons. I'm like, somebody is either, they can be neutral, quiet, don't say much, like, and then you can be a net positive, a proton,
There
or
you
electron.
go. Look at you.
And I'm like, I have to have
Sophomore chemistry or something?
more protons, though.
Dang,
And
you
neutral.
smart.
We can't have too many electrons pulling everybody down.
You lost me on the
We can't have
cell.
too many negative people.
Yeah.
I'm like, because then I'm always like, let me tell you what you don't want. You don't want me coming in and being this big negative one, personality. And everybody's like, man, how are you? I'm like, dude, not good. Business is really tough. I'm super stressed.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure if we're going to make it. Then everybody's like, y'all think that's it? Like, how's that help everybody?
Yeah, you have a
know?
very strong and magnetic personality. You do well normally using it for good, using it to stay positive, to bring laughter, to bring joy, to start the initiative of generosity or jokes or whatever. So I think,
Except about a month ago for one day.
yeah, we all have our days.
I remember that day.
You're allowed 1 or 2 days a year.
Allison's like, I can count 6 since I've been here.
But other than that, we need you.
For sure.
We need your positivity.
Kindness is important. We love kindness. We love you if you're watching this podcast. If you made it this far, this is episode.
Congrats.
This is episode what?
I believe 6.
6. Most people don't make it past 2. So We're doing good.
So, what are some questions at the very end of this that you can reflect on? Are you a naturally positive person, or do you find yourself to be naturally negative? Are you an action taker? If you see something kind of going on about that needs, I don't know, help stepped in, or
How do you leave a
how
situation?
do you leave a situation? How do you
Better or
handle
worse?
it? Yeah. Do you leave the situation better than when you got there, or worse, or just things to think about that we've been thinking about recently? And as always with parents, it comes to us first, and then we're like, now what do we want to instill into our children? Or what questions do we want to ask our kids and see what answers they give us, you know? So it's all interesting.
It is good.
Yeah.
Ask those questions.
And we'll see you next time.
You got it on here still?
And you.
I can do it real quick then.
All right.
If you made it this far to episode 6, we made it statistically further than most. Anything in here, please like, subscribe, share it with somebody, one person, that's good. Share that and share kindness. And we will see you on the next episode.
See you.
Lauren Dalton.